So it's a 20% sell-on of the profit of the next transfer, 3 installments, and a goal bonus. Okay, what does that mean? Hi guys, I'm Aussie Villain and welcome to my Football Manager 2022 tutorial for transfers. We'll go through everything that is involved in a transfer, all the different clauses you can add in and all that sort of fun stuff. Now if you are new to the channel, of course, make sure you are subscribing. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, find it helpful so others can find the video. And let's get this underway. Now we start in the transfer center. This is where you'll see sort of all your ins and outs. You can filter by all, by just the ins, or by just the outs. You can see this is a game I started up with Aston Villa. There's nothing happening at all. Now one thing I did want to flag up is Director of Football. There is actually some really good ways that you can use your Director of Football, particularly if you're stuck. So suggested transfer targets, this is very, very useful. So if we go for striker, all roles suggest, and they'll bring up three options there. Now what I would recommend, now I did do a separate tutorial on scouting. I'd always, unless you can fully see what you're signing, I would never sign a player. I mean, this guy's wanted by Tottenham, so he can't be too bad. So I would say just give them a scout, but is there anybody here that they've recommended that we can see all of? No, not really. But if you are stuck sort of at the end of a transfer window, and we've all been there, where suddenly a player leaves that you're not expecting to leave, or maybe there's an injury, and you have a Director of Football, definitely look to use them for suggested transfer targets. It has on more than one occasion saved my bacon, I can tell you. Just going in and getting that last minute transfer and getting the idea from the Director of Football. And it always helps if you have a good Director of Football. This one's not great, but he's not the worst. So that's why I always have a Director of Football just to use as an extra scout in these sorts of situations, and always look to get the best one that I can. So that is something I did want to flag up. You can also use them to get rid of some unwanted players, get them out on loan. I'll do a separate tutorial probably on the Director of Football actually, because there's a lot to cover there. Now clauses you see up here. Now this is all the clauses that are added to a deal, and we'll go through them all individually in just a moment here. One thing that you can see here is with the option to cash out. Now, I would not, if I was, El Ghazi is currently our player, so we could negotiate, we could buy out, instead of paying 300 grand after 13 more appearances, we could pay 232 now. Typically, I wouldn't do that. I would just, if he happens to play 13 more games for the sake of, what's that, 70 grand, I'd just let it go. Where this can be useful, I don't think there's an example of it in this Villa team, but if you were due a clause, so if this was the other way around and you were due, say, 250 after 51 games, what I would do is I would just check and see if the player is playing for their new club. And if they are, then I'd leave it. But if they're not playing, it might be worth just cashing out on any of these potential monies you could get in. Just you're better off having something rather than nothing, even if there's a little bit less. If they're not playing or for their new team, you know, after a season or two, I always think it's better just to cash in. Now let's have a look and see what is involved in a transfer. All the different options you have. So for this example, we are going to try and sign Harrison Burrows from Peterborough with Aston Villa. Now, the first thing you can always do is ask agent about availability here. This will give you an idea, A, if they're interested. Let's say we're very interested. A, if they're interested in joining, and B, roughly what the demands are going to be. So he would obviously, you'd like to move from Peterborough to a Premier League club, so that's not a problem. Peterborough, he believes, will want a fee somewhere between $500,000 and 4.6. So that gives you an idea of roughly the ballpark that you're going to be playing in. You can see his wages. I'll do a separate contracts tutorial, so we won't deal with that necessarily in this one. And he'd expect to be a breakthrough player, a breakthrough prospect. So he's not expecting first team football. So that all looks good. Let's go with that. So now we make an offer, and this is where all the fun begins. So we can see there roughly what they're expecting. We'll try and lowball them. We would want the fee to transfer to be immediate. The only reason you wouldn't want it to be immediate is perhaps if you have somebody leaving and you want to wait till they leave to then bring the new player in. But typically, I'd rather get them in as soon as possible to settle in anyway. So let's try and maybe lowball them ever so slightly, and let's say we go to 350, and we look to make up everything in additional fees. So installments. Now this is basically. You can see 3 installments every year, or you can do 6 monthly or 12 monthly installments, so over 3 years, or over, it would be, a year and a half. Oh, sorry, it would be over 3 years again, but you would do 6 installments. So what this means is as you would say, if you were to pay say add £1,000 onto the transfer this way, it would be 6 payments of £170 each. It sounds like you're buying a piece of furniture, doesn't it? But yeah, that is a good way if you don't have the budget, the transfer budget to buy players now. It is a good way to spread the cost out. But I don't know. I always prefer just to pay up front, if I'm honest. I don't usually like to use installments. I don't like to pay up front, but I don't like to do it in installments. But that is a way to get those difficult transfers across the line. After league appearances, this is a good one, I think, to add on. I always say 50 games. We want it as much in your favor as possible. And so let's say if he comes off, he's a bit of a success. We will give. Actually, let's see if we can really lowball him. Let's say we give him 100 grand up front. 155, I can't bother clicking back anymore. And if he plays 50 games for us, we'll give him 225. Now, the reason you want to do this is that way if he comes off, then you're paying the fee. If he doesn't work out, then you've not really cost yourself any money. So this is one of the ones that I do like to use to bring down the initial transfer fee per league appearance. So that means you're going to be paying this amount per game. So whether it be £1,000 upwards, I don't like to do that. But again, if it gets something across the line, maybe you do, 2.5 grand. But for a bigger player, you would offer more, obviously. Typically, I'd rather do it after 50 games than have that one there. After international appearances, so obviously international caps, this is sometimes a good one to add on. Now, this is sometimes a good one if you instead of being the buying club, if you're the selling club, then this can be a useful one to get a little bit more money if it's a player that you expect to go on, especially if they're from maybe a smaller footballing country where they're almost certainly going to play for their country. For example, the difference between selling an English player and say maybe a Northern Irish player. The Northern Irish player is more likely to get a cap than the English player is unless they're super special. So that can be a good one to add on if you're the selling club, but the selling club. But if you're the buying club, again, you want to try and minimize how many of these you're getting add-ons anyway. Minimum league goals, good one to add in, especially for defenders. if you're the buying club, so we'll add on a little bit there for that. So obviously it is what it sounds like. If he scores 50 goals, we'll give him 250 grand. If he doesn't, then we don't pay it. And the reason it's a good one, if you are the buying club for a defender, what are the chances of a defender getting 50 goals? Very little, and if they get it, then they've earned you'll happily pay the transfer fee, I would imagine. Players to exchange, this is exactly what it sounds like. As silly as it sounds, I would say avoid this. The reason I would say avoid this is because if the player that you're looking to get rid of as part of the deal here, if they reject the contract of the new club, then the whole deal's off. So I would steer clear of that unless you're absolutely 100% certain that the player you're offering to them is going to sign for them. Otherwise, stay clear of that, and vice versa. If you're the selling club and you're trying to get somebody in, just stay clear of it, I think, because if that player refuses to join, then the whole deal is off. All right, now bonuses after achievements. This can be a good one, particularly if you're in the Champions League to add things on. But if a bonus, particularly for a club like Villa, upon qualifying for the Champions League, I mean, you'll throw money around if you get there, won't you? So that can be a good one. Now, you can add on sort of clauses within the clause that he has to have played a minimum amount of games. And you can also put an expiry date on this, so up to the next 3 seasons. It's worth doing, if especially if you're signing a young player, you might save yourself some cash. I tend to not do it because I'm a nice guy. I don't know what else to say. And there's also other options there, winning the FA Cup or getting to a certain point in the FA Cup. And if you're in Europe, the option will be there for every competition or most competitions you play in anyway. So that is that. Additional clauses you can add in a loan back length. Now, this is exactly what it sounds like, to loan the player back to the club that you're buying from. Now, if he's not going to be playing in your first team and he is already a sort of a player at his team right now, it can be worth letting them go back on loan for the season just so that they're playing first team football. Again, I typically like to get them in and get coaching them and see what they have and maybe play them in cup games, and worst case scenario, loan them out of your choice. But it is an option. But if you're the selling club and if you are selling one of your young stars, always try and get this back in, because more often than not, what you'll find is that they're sort of out of sight, out of mind for the new club, and you can just keep loaning them back. So it's worth doing if you're, as I say, if you're selling, if you're buying, I tend to steer clear of it. If we go down percentage of the next sale, now it's very confusing. Percentage of profit of the next transfer and percentage of the next transfer or sale. If I was to read directly from the screen, I always want to do percentage of the next sale. If you're the buying club, if you're the selling club, you just don't want to do it at all if you can help it. But the difference between the two, if it's a percentage of the profit, what it means is that, so say, for argument's sake, we sell him for £150,000. If we were to then sell him for £250,000, the profit of the sale would be at £100,000, and they would get 10% of that. If you're just doing percentage of next sale, then you would get 10% of the 250,000 if you see the difference. So if you are the buying club, as I say, just try and exclude so that it's not an option. More often than not, the selling club will try and add that in. So make sure you exclude it. Again, just click on that side arrow there and remove and exclude from negotiation. If you have to sort of preempt them and do it, don't make an offer, because often they'll insist on it. So before you make your initial bid, make sure you're doing that. That takes it off the table. But if you're the selling club, add this in, try and get 50%. You can lock it in, though it can be a bit of a deal breaker as well. So I tend to do it. You can even make it sort of, it's part of it, but negotiable kind of thing. They can sort of negotiate the percentage, but that clause is going to be there. That's of course to say if you're the selling club. So that is that clause. A buyback price. Now this is a good one if you are a bigger club and you are selling somebody that it's not really good enough to make your team right now, but might in the future be good enough. Add in a buyback fee, and that means, this is because again if you're the selling team, and that means that you'll be able to buy them back for that price should they go on to be a success. You see this, Barcelona used to do it all the time. But if you're the buying club, again, not something you want to limit these as much as possible. Selling team wage contribution. Now this is something that if you are signing a player, usually you'd find it at sort of a player from one of the bigger Premier League or any Premier League team, to be honest, and they've got a player that's on stupid wages, like 100, 200 grand a week, and they're not using them anymore. What you can look to do is have them pay a contribution towards their wage. Now obviously Burrows is not on big money, so it's not really something we have to worry about. But if you are buying someone like that, you can have the selling club, you could try and max it out. They're really desperate to get rid of them. Because what could happen is, say they're on 200 grand a week and you can pay them 100 grand a week. That's your max budget, your max wage that you can pay. It's still in their interest to do it, because A, they get a transfer fee, but also they're saving 100 grand a week. You're saving 100 grand a week, and the player's playing football. So it can be sort of work out in everybody's favor. So definitely worth doing if you are trying to get that highly paid player that's not playing at their current club. Arrange a friendly. I mean, it is what it sounds like. It means that as part of the deal, we would I don't actually know if we would have to host Peterborough or if they would host the game. Either way, I don't usually use it. Just use it's up to you, obviously, but just use what you know is going to happen, I always say. And the last one here is sell player first. Now, this is a really good thing to use if you're in a situation where you're coming towards the end of a transfer window. We've all been there, and there's someone sniffing around one of your players, or your player has a release fee, and teams are getting close to triggering it, but they haven't quite triggered it yet. If you want to have that replacement ready to come in should they go through, then have sell player first in as part of the deal. So that means that you won't sign this new player unless that other player leaves. So you're kind of covering both bases in that you've got the replacement in if the player has their release fee triggered or whatever it is that may happen. But equally, if they don't leave, you don't find yourself in a situation where you've got two sort of first choice left wingers or something along those lines. So very, very useful for those awkward situations at the end of a transfer window. So let's go with this. Let's try. We've got a potential transfer value there. You can see of 875,000. They say no. They're going to want a bigger transfer fee. We don't really want to pay that much. So let's go down to say, let's push it here. Let's say 1 million, and then let's put these bonuses up. They wanted 3.7. They wanted a player to exchange. We're not in the business of doing that. And so let's say 50 goals. 1 million, and let's say Champions League 500,000. That gets us roughly to they wanted 3.7. So we've taken a little bit off of that. Let's see what that goes for. and we're sort of starting to get down into the realms of something that's workable for us. 4.1 as a total, but only 1.4 up front. There we go. And that's how you would negotiate a transfer fee. And obviously, if you are the selling club, you'd want to try and get things up as high as possible, but basically using the same methods. So that's it for the transfer tutorial. Hopefully it's been helpful for you. If it has been, hit thumbs up. Don't forget, if you are new, subscribe. There's a load of different tutorials, and are going to already be up and coming up as well. Plus, we're going to be at Queen of the South in Scotland trying to win the Champions League with them as well. So lots and lots of stuff on the channel to stick around for. But until next time, I've been Aussie Villain. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.